What up, friends? Aren't we all? And today I'm going to be reviewing Earl Sweatshirt's newest album, Sick. This is the fourth album overall by American West Coast hip-hop artist Earl Sweatshirt. Earl is beloved by many, including myself, and he has quite an interesting catalog behind him. His 2018 album, Some Rap Songs, is widely considered to be his best. While not a perfect record, it is fantastic, and it's a very heartfelt and somber delve into Earl's struggles with depression, especially coming after his father's death. This new project sees Earl kind of finding the light at the end of the tunnel, only for COVID to hit and the world went to shit. While feeling very derivative of some rap songs, and even feeling a bit incomplete at times, I do think Sick is a pretty intimate look in how Earl dealt with all of 2020 and 2021's shenanigans. Old Friend is a great first impression with its darkly wistful beat and pulsing synth going in and out. Earl sounds exasperated but driven, passionately describing how glad he was to reconnect with an old friend that he hadn't talked to in a while. It kind of shows how Earl had no choice but to reconnect and interact with people, especially because he couldn't go out under quarantine. All this in order to avoid cabin fever, in a sense, as he puts it. 2010 by far has one of the best beats on this project, feeling like a glistening jewel with faceted edges. I'm really digging Earl's flow here too, feeling very smooth over a much more rigid instrumental. It shines in the lyrics as well, as Earl sort of takes us through his contemplations sitting alone at night. I especially really like the chorus of "Sharpened scissors reveal slowly in the dark inside we was real hungry," along with the "foot shook ground when I broke soil, cause every time I did it would hurt more." This song also feels one of the more fleshed out songs on the project too, which does help it stand out. The title track, Sick, is a bit more jazzy in its instrumentation, however, the trap beat that backs it doesn't really do the instrumental much justice. Earl also sounds pretty bored over this track, not really matching the energy of either instrumental style. I do think the lyrics do a great job in conveying how Earl is still dealing with his depression, as he says, "You'll fall and slip again, I heard life a trip," but he largely doesn't do much to convey these emotions, if that makes sense. I think the delivery just kind of understates the lyrics. Next up we got Vision, and this beat is beautiful, man. One of the best on the album for sure, and Zayloopers is just perfect over it as well. That elegant piano is fantastic, and the static just adds to the raw nature of the song. Again, like 2010, it feels way more complete compared to a lot of the other tracks on here. Zayloopers' cries for someone to share his life with him are haunting, especially in the "Simply sin for me, bitch, sing Symphony Line." Earl largely continues this longing for companionship while also describing how many people were stuck between a rock and a hard place while under the COVID quarantines, as they were supposed to not go out so they don't catch the virus. However, they still had bills to pay, they still had to go to their jobs in order to live, you know? So I think it did a pretty great job at describing how the COVID protections just often weren't enough for a lot of people, and that America kind of handled the pandemic poorly. Tabula Rasa largely continues the soulful vibes of the previous song with the addition of some sampled background vocals and a lighter piano riff. The contrast of the more intense rapping styles of both members of Arm & Hammer and the lighter beat is really engaging, and they have a really heartfelt delivery. This is very fitting, as both of them, along with Earl, are looking back at their previous experiences in the rap scene and how they worked hard to get to where they are today. It's an intricate and melancholic moment that adds to the emotion of the project pretty nicely. However, after this, the album tends to really run out of steam. Lie has another warm beat with a jazzy presence thanks to the clarinet and brass. The static does add to the aesthetic again, and Earl does sound pretty chill and down to earth here. However, I think the lyrics are probably the biggest problem on this one, as I find them kind of too vague at times. Lyrically, I find the song pretty all over the place, and it kind of meanders around a lot, and this is especially apparent as we get to the Malcolm X quote at the end, where he's essentially addressing the African American community, telling them to embrace their features, they're beautiful as they are, they don't need to change anything. But then we get Earl's lyrics, who are kind of all over the place and meander around the topic, so it was kind of an odd decision. The lobby interlude largely feels out of place on this project in general. The beat feels rigid, but in a very monotonous and generic way. It really just feels like any other generic trap rap song out there, and it's so short that it even sticks out among the other short songs on the project. Lyrically, it's pretty braggadocious, however, it doesn't even have the energy to back up the lyrics. I really don't know who'd be intimidated by someone sounding like this, to be honest. God Laughs also kind of feels like an interlude, however with a bit more interesting ambient beat to it. I really do appreciate Earl sort of talking about his grandfather and his bout with dementia and how that inspired Earl to take things in life more seriously and not take things for granted. However, it really does feel like just an intro to a track that never comes. Titanic is also one of my least favorites for largely the same reasons as Lobby. The beat is far more simplistic and rigid compared to some of the others on the project, and Earl's flows and ad-libs are just awkward and corny. It's largely the same lyrical topics as Lobby with the same amount of impact as well. The album does end on a strong note though with Fire in the Hole, which is probably one of the most effective songs in recapturing the Some Rap Songs aesthetic and emotion. Vibey and elegant guitar-driven beats, Earl's very fluid flows, and the warm static effect all add up to create a pretty pleasant experience. It brings the relationship-driven lyrical angle back, with Earl saying, "Seeping into the mulch, I need a quick result. I read it and don't respond. She see it in salt sprinkle. I need another go. I'm seeing her when I want." It has this longing to it that Earl really does want to connect with this person, but for some reason, whether it's his depression or what, he finds it hard to do so he ends up just being distant. The simple piano outro to this track as well showcases that Earl is definitely getting better, but he's not quite whole just yet. Now, while this is still a pretty good project, it really does sound like Earl's sound is getting the best of him. Many instances on this album really just feel like boneless Some Rap Songs, from the song structures to the very distant beats and vocals. The problem with this was Some Rap Songs had intense emotion to back it up, alongside a more concise set of tracks and narrative. Sick feels fairly disjointed and half-baked at times, especially in the second half, even if the helpings that we did get were the start of something good. At the end of the day though, that's kind of what this album is, the start of something good, with a few complete sounding tracks thrown in. There's some creative ideas on here for sure, but they were all done better on his previous record. Because of this, I am feeling a decent 6 on Earl Sweatshirt's Sick. Of course, we do have to talk about the album cover on this show, and I do think this album cover is pretty good for this album. It does have a sort of raw aesthetic to it. It's kind of like a DIY project, which also fits the nature of being under quarantine and having to work on something to keep yourself distracted. Good warm colors to it too, very natural imagery on this one. It's kind of like the antithesis of Some Rap Songs, but also having a slight connection to it, so I do get that. So the album cover was pretty good at least. But of course, those are just my thoughts on the new Earl Sweatshirt project. What did you guys think? Do you think this was a logical next step from Some Rap Songs, or did he just kind of try to replicate it and not do it as well? Let me know. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell if you want me to cure you, and until the next one, farewell.